Admiral Mi Kyung-seo stood in front of the biggest screen she had ever seen. On it was a picture of space filled with alien ships. Each ship was huge and covered in weapons. The picture came from Captain Kim's ship, the Dauntless. It was proof that Earth was about to be invaded. "How long do we have?" she asked the room full of military leaders and scientists. Dr. So-Jin Lee, who had built the faster-than-light drive, looked tired. She had not slept much since coming back from space. "Their ships are slower than ours, but not by much. Maybe 6 months before they reach Earth." 6 months, Mi Kyung repeated. She had been a soldier for 30 years. She had fought in wars and seen terrible things, but she had never faced anything like this. 6 months to prepare for gods. "They're not gods," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Dong-Hyun Lim. He was young, maybe 25 years old. He wore a simple shirt and jeans, not a uniform like everyone else. "They're just bullies with big ships." "And you are?" Mi Kyung asked. "Dong-Hyun Lim. I used to win video game tournaments. Now I work for the military, thinking about how to fight wars." He stepped closer to the screen. "I've been studying the recording from the Dauntless. These aliens fight like they always win. That's their weakness." "Explain," Mi Kyung said. Dong-Hyun pointed at the alien ships on the screen. "Look how they move. Perfect lines, no creativity. They expect everyone to give up when they see how big their ships are. They've been winning the same way for 1,000 years." "Because it works," said General Park, an older man with gray hair. "Because they've never fought someone who refuses to lose," Dong-Hyun replied. "In games, the best way to beat someone stronger is to do things they don't expect. Make them play by your rules, not theirs." Mi Kyung studied the young man. "What are you suggesting?" "We don't fight their kind of war. We fight ours." Dr. Ye-Jin Han raised her hand. She was a physicist who studied the smallest parts of matter. "Admiral, I think he's right. I've been looking at the energy readings from their ships. They're powerful, but they use old technology. We can build weapons they won't expect." "In 6 months?" Mi Kyung asked. "If we work together," Ye-Jin said. "Every factory, every scientist, every person who can help. We turn the whole planet into a weapons factory." Mi Kyung looked around the room. These people were talking about doing the impossible, building a space fleet in 6 months, fighting an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. It was crazy, but what choice did they have? "Do it," she said. "Start Protocol Impossible." Protocol Impossible was the plan they made for the worst-case scenario. Every country on Earth would work together. Every factory would make weapons and ships. Every person would help in some way. It had never been used before because no one thought it would ever be needed. Junho Kang was in charge of making it work. He was an engineer who built factories. Now he had to build hundreds of them, all in a few months. "We need metal," he said, at the first meeting. "Lots of it, every old car, every building, we can tear down everything." People listened. In every city around the world, humans began taking apart their old world to build a new one. Car factories started making spaceships. Companies that made phones started making weapons. Schools became training centers for soldiers and pilots. It was crazy, but it worked. Dr. Ye-Jin Han worked day and night on new weapons. She took human technology and mixed it with what they learned from the alien recordings. The result was strange, but powerful. Human weapons were smaller than alien ones, but they moved faster and hit harder. The aliens used big, slow weapons because they always fought people who stood still and waited to die, she explained to Mi Kyung. "Our weapons are made to hit fast-moving targets who fight back." Meanwhile, Nari Jung tried to find a peaceful solution. She was a diplomat who had helped countries make peace instead of war. She sent messages into space hoping to talk to the aliens. The messages came back with the same answer every time: "Surrender now or be destroyed later." "They don't want to talk," she told Mi Kyung sadly. "To them, we're just another world to collect. They can't understand why we won't give up." "Good," Mi Kyung said. "Let them underestimate us." As the months passed, Earth changed. The sky was always full of ships being tested. People worked in shifts around the clock. Children learned how to hide in case the fighting came to Earth. Everyone knew what was coming. The aliens sent scout ships ahead of their main fleet. These were smaller ships, only the size of office buildings instead of cities. They came to study Earth's defenses and make sure the humans were ready to surrender. They found something they did not expect. The first scout ship appeared near the moon. It sent a message to Earth. "We are here to accept your surrender. Prepare your leaders to meet with us." Instead of leaders, they met Earth's new space fleet. The human ships were smaller than the scout ship, but there were many of them. They moved in patterns that confused the alien computers. When the alien ship fired its weapons, the human ships were already somewhere else. The scout ship sent a worried message to the main fleet. "Humans are not surrendering. They are fighting. Send help." But the human ships did not give it time to say more. They attacked from all sides at once. The alien ship was strong, but it could not fight in all directions. After an hour of battle, it exploded. More scout ships came. The humans destroyed those too. On the alien command ship far from Earth, the admiral looked at the reports with confusion. They destroyed 5 scout ships? How is that possible? "The humans are using strange tactics," his aide said. "They don't fight like other species. They move unpredictably. They use their own damaged ships as weapons. They won't retreat even when they should." The alien admiral had conquered 12 worlds himself. He knew how these things went. First, the locals would try to fight with their primitive weapons. Then they would see how useless it was. Then they would surrender. But the humans were not following the pattern. "No matter," he said. "When they see our main fleet, they will understand. Prepare to attack Earth." On Earth, people watched the news about the scout ships. They cheered when human ships won. But everyone knew the real test was coming. Mi Kyung stood in the command center, looking at pictures of the alien main fleet, approaching Earth. 300 massive ships, each one capable of destroying a city with one shot. "Are we ready?" she asked Dong-hyun. The young strategist smiled. "Admiral, we were never going to be ready for a fair fight. Good thing we're not planning to fight fair." Dr. Ye Jin-han nodded. "Our weapons are loaded and our ships are in position. We have surprises they won't see coming." Jun Ho Kang reported from the factories. "We've built 200 ships in 6 months. Each one is different, built to do a specific job. The aliens won't know how to fight them because we barely know ourselves." Nari Jung had one last message from the aliens. "This is your final chance. Surrender now and your people will be allowed to live as servants. Refuse, and we will destroy your world." Mi Kyung took the microphone. She broadcast her answer to the alien fleet and to every human on Earth. "We are humans. We don't know how to surrender. Come and try to take our world. You'll find out what that means." The alien fleet moved closer to Earth. They expected to find scared people ready to give up. Instead, they found humans who had spent 6 months preparing for war. The aliens were about to learn something new. They were about to learn what happened when someone refused to be conquered. The war for Earth was about to begin. Captain Hyun-woo Kim felt his stomach drop as the ship shook violently. Red lights flashed across the control room of the Dauntless, humanity's first ship built to travel faster than light. The alarm sounds hurt his ears, but he stayed calm. He had been flying ships for 20 years. Nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. "Dr. Lee, what is happening?" he asked the woman sitting at the science station. So-Jin Lee was the smartest person he knew. She had built the special engine that was supposed to take them to the nearest star and back in 1 day. It was meant to be a simple test flight. So-Jin's hands moved quickly over her controls. Her face was pale. "The drive is not working right, Captain. We jumped too far. Much too far." "How far?" Hyun-woo asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "I don't know yet. The stars, they're all wrong. We're not near Earth anymore." Taeho Park, the military man they brought along for safety, walked over to them. His uniform was neat even after the rough jump. "Captain, we're getting signals, lots of them. They're not from Earth." Hyun-woo looked at the main screen. Space around them was full of ships. Huge ships. Each one was bigger than any building on Earth. They were black and covered in strange lights. The ships moved in perfect lines like they were dancing together. "How many?" he asked. Jamin Choi, their young engineer, looked up from his station. His voice shook a little. Over 300, sir, and they're all pointing weapons at us. The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the screen. The alien ships looked like metal mountains floating in space. Their weapons glowed with blue light. The Dauntless was tiny compared to them. It was like a mouse facing a pack of wolves. A new sound came through the speakers. It was not human. The voice was deep and strange, but somehow they could understand it. Small ship, you have entered the space of the great Xerian Empire. You will stop your engines and wait. Do not try to run. Do not try to fight. You belong to us now. Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. So-jin was still working on her computers. Tae-ho had his hand on his weapon, though it would do no good here. Jae-min looked scared but ready to do his job. This is Captain Kim of Earthship Dauntless, Hyun-woo said into the radio. We are not here to fight. Our engine broke. We made a mistake. The alien voice came back quickly. Mistake or not, you are here now. The Xerion Empire has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We have taken control of 847 worlds. Your world will be number 848. Our world? So-jin asked quietly. The voice continued. You will tell us where your home world is. We will send ships there. Your people will join our empire. They will work for us. They will serve us. This is how it has always been. This is how it will always be. Hyun-woo felt anger growing in his chest. These aliens talked about his home like it was a thing to be bought and sold. They talked about his people like they were animals. And if we say no? He asked. The alien voice sounded amused. No. You are 4 people in one small ship. We are millions and hundreds of ships. Your weapons are like toys. Your ship is like paper. You cannot say no to us. On the screen, one of the huge ships moved closer. It was so big that it blocked out the stars. Weapons along its side turned to point at the Dauntless. Each weapon was bigger than their whole ship. We have done this before, the voice said. First we find a new world, then we study it, then we take it. The people always say yes in the end. They see our power and they understand. Fighting is useless. Tae-ho stepped forward. His voice was hard. Captain, we should... No, Hyun-woo said quietly, then louder into the radio. No! What did you say? The alien voice asked. Hyun-woo stood up straight. I said no. We did not come here to kneel. We did not come here to give you our world. We made a mistake coming here, but we will not make the mistake of giving up. The alien ships moved closer. More weapons turned toward them. The blue lights grew brighter. You are being foolish, the voice said. We will destroy you, then we will find your world anyway. We will take it and everyone on it will suffer because you were too proud to surrender. Maybe, Hyun-woo said, but they will know we tried. So Jin looked up from her controls. Captain, the drive is working again. Sort of. I can get us moving, but I don't know where we'll end up. Jae-min was working fast at his station. I'm routing power from life support to the engines. We'll only have air for a few hours, but we'll be faster. Do it, Hyun-woo said. The alien voice came back, angry now. You choose death over wisdom. So be it. All ships destroy the small vessel. The space around them filled with blue fire as hundreds of weapons shot at once, but the Dauntless was already moving. So Jin's broken drive shot them forward in a strange jumping motion that the alien computers could not predict. There, Jae-min pointed at the screen. An asteroid field. If we can reach it, they won't follow us in there, Tae-ho said. Too dangerous for ships that size. Hyun-woo smiled grimly. Then that's where we're going. The Dauntless twisted and turned as alien fire chased them. The ship's metal skin burned in some places. Sparks flew from broken controls, but they kept flying. Behind them, the alien ship slowed down. The asteroid field was full of spinning rocks, some as big as cities. The huge alien ships could not move quickly enough to avoid them. They're stopping, So-jin said with surprise. Cowards, Tae-ho muttered. They only fight when they know they'll win. For 6 hours, they hid among the asteroids while Sojin fixed the drive. The aliens waited outside the field, but they did not come in. Finally, the drive was ready. "I can get us home," Sojin said. "Maybe. The drive is still not working right." Yanwu ordered. The stars twisted around them as they jumped back toward Earth. When space became normal again, they could see the sun in the distance. They were home. "What do we tell them?" Jamin asked quietly. Yanwu looked at the recording of their meeting with the aliens. 300 huge ships, weapons that could destroy planets, an empire that had ruled for 1,000 years. "We tell them the truth," he said. "We tell them what's coming, and we tell them that when it gets here, we'll be ready." So Jin shook her head. "Captain, you saw their ships. How can we be ready for that?" Hyunwoo thought about the alien voice, so sure of itself, so certain that humans would give up like all the others had. "Because," he said, "they think they know us. They think we're like everyone else they've conquered, but they're wrong." He looked at his crew. 4 humans who had faced impossible odds and lived to tell about it. They don't know us at all. The Dauntless limped toward Earth, carrying news. That would change everything. Behind them, the alien empire began to move. They were coming to collect their new prize. They had no idea what they were walking into. Captain Seung-ho Yoon stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's biggest warship. It was still tiny compared to the alien vessels approaching Earth, but it was built with 6 months of human anger and determination. Every piece of metal had been placed by people who refused to give up. "Enemy fleet in range," reported his weapons officer. 300 ships, just like the scouts said. Seung-ho looked at the main screen. The alien ships moved in perfect formation toward Earth. They looked like a wall of black metal and blue lights, stretching across space. Each ship was the size of a city. Their weapons could turn planets into dust. The human fleet was spread, out around Earth and the Moon. 200 ships, each one different from the others. Some were fast and small. Others were slower, but carried bigger weapons. All of them carried crews who had trained for 6 months to fight gods. "This is Admiral Won-sik Che of the Zerion Empire," came the alien voice over the radio. "Humans of Earth, you have seen our power. You know you cannot win. Surrender now and we will be merciful." Seung-ho picked up the radio. "This is Captain Yoon of the Earth Defense Force. We've seen your power. We're not impressed." There was a pause. Then the alien voice came back, sounding confused. "Not impressed? We have destroyed worlds older than your species. We have weapons that can crack moons. How are you not impressed?" "Because," Seung-ho said, "we've seen bullies before, and we know what happens to bullies when someone finally stands up to them." Another pause. When the alien admiral spoke again, his voice was hard. "Very well. You choose death. All ships, destroy the human fleet." Space exploded with light. The alien ships fired their weapons all at once. Blue beams thick as buildings shot across space toward the human ships. Each beam carried enough power to vaporize anything it touched. But the human ships were not where the aliens expected them to be. "Scatter pattern 7, Seung-ho ordered. The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds, each ship flying in a different direction. The alien weapons hit empty space. Hyejin Kim was flying her fighter ship, the Braveheart, when the first alien shots passed by her. The beam was so close she could feel the heat through her ship's metal walls. "All fighters, attack pattern chaos," she called to her squadron. "Hit them from every angle." Hyejin had been flying since she was 16 years old. She had never flown in space before 6 months ago, but she learned fast. Now she flew her ship like it was part of her body, twisting and spinning between the alien weapons. Her fighter was fast and small. The aliens had trouble hitting her with their big guns. She flew straight at the nearest alien ship, a massive vessel covered in weapon turrets. It was like a mouse attacking an elephant. The alien guns tried to track her, but she was too fast and too unpredictable. She reached the ship's hull and fired her weapons at point-blank range. Her guns were small compared to the alien's armor, but she aimed for weak points that Dr. Ye-Jin Han had identified. Sparks flew as her shots hit. AI, small section of the alien ship's armor cracked. It was not much damage, but it was a start. Target the joint points, she called to other fighters. Just like we practiced. All around Earth's solar system, human fighters swarmed the alien ships like angry bees. The aliens swatted at them with massive weapons, but the human pilots were too fast and too clever. On the alien command ship, Admiral Wansik Che watched his screens with growing frustration. "Why can't we hit them?" he demanded. "They move unpredictably, sir," his weapons officer replied. "Our computers cannot calculate their flight paths. They seem to change direction randomly." "Nothing moves randomly. There must be a pattern." But there was no pattern. The human pilots flew on instinct and training and pure stubbornness. They did not follow rules of space combat because they had written their own rules in 6 months of desperate preparation. The bigger human ships attacked differently. They did not try to match the aliens' weapon for weapon. Instead, they used tricks. Captain Seung-ho watched as one of his ships, the Defiant, took heavy damage from alien fire. Half the ship was burning and it was spinning out of control. By all normal rules, it should retreat or surrender. Instead, Captain Lee Min-ho, commander of the Defiant, did something the aliens never expected. He aimed his dying ship at the nearest alien vessel and pushed his engines to full power. "Ramming speed," Lee's voice came over the radio. "If we're going down, we're taking them with us." The alien ship tried to move out of the way, but it was too big and too slow. The Defiant smashed into its side like a missile. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up space. Admiral Wansik Che stared at his screens. "Did that human ship just—" "Yes, sir. It deliberately crashed into the glorious victory. Both ships are destroyed." "Impossible. No species does that. They always try to save themselves." But more human ships were doing the same thing. When they took too much damage to keep fighting, they turned themselves into weapons. They rammed alien ships or flew into groups of fighters or crashed into weapon arrays. Dr. Kyung-mi Park was working in the medical bay of the Indomitable when the first wounded soldiers arrived. The ship shook as alien weapons hit it, but she kept working. She had to save everyone she could. "Doctor, this man has radiation poisoning," a nurse said, bringing in a pilot whose fighter had been hit. Kyung-mi looked at the readings. The pilot should be dead. The radiation levels were deadly, but he was still conscious, still trying to get back to his fighter. "I can fly," he said weakly. "Just patch me up. My squadron needs me." "You need to rest," Kyung-mi said, but she knew he would not listen. None of them would. She had seen dozens of wounded soldiers refuse to stay in bed. They all wanted to get back to the fight. She gave him medicine to fight the radiation and sent him back to his ship. It was dangerous, maybe deadly, but she understood. Sometimes the only way to stay human was to keep fighting. On the communication channel, Sung-min Lee listened to messages coming from all over the battle. He heard human pilots calling for help. He heard alien ships reporting damage. And he heard something else. Other voices, speaking in languages he did not recognize. They were coming from alien ships, but they were not the voices of the Zirion Empire. "Captain," he said to Seung-ho, "I'm picking up transmissions from inside the alien fleet. I think some of their ships are fighting each other." Seung-ho looked at him with surprise. "What?" "Listen." Sung-min played the recording. The voices were speaking different alien languages, but the computer translated them. "Freedom. Down with the Empire. Fight back." Seung-ho smiled grimly. "Looks like we're not the only ones who don't like being pushed around. Broadcast this message on all frequencies. To all enslaved species fighting with us today, Earth stands with you. We fight not just for our world, but for everyone who wants to be free." The message spread across space. On alien ships throughout, the fleet enslaved species who had been forced to fight for the Empire heard it. Some of them had been slaves for hundreds of years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. But seeing humans refuse to surrender reminded them. If these small creatures could stand up to the Empire, maybe they could too. Rebellions broke out on dozens of alien ships. Enslaved workers turned on their masters. Forced soldiers pointed their guns at Empire officers instead of humans. Some Ships stopped fighting entirely as their crews fought among themselves. Admiral Wansik Chai watched his fleet tear itself apart. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. The humans were supposed to see the Empire's power and surrender. The enslaved species were supposed to stay enslaved. "Sir," his aide said nervously, "we're losing ships to internal rebellion. The humans have somehow inspired our own slaves to fight back." "Impossible," Wansik shouted. "They're just humans. They have small ships and primitive weapons. How are they winning?" But they were winning. After 8 hours of battle, 50 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 70 ships, but they were still fighting. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy something it had not seen in 1,000 years. They had shown that the Empire could be beaten. "Sir," the aide said quietly, "I recommend we retreat. We can regroup and—" "Never!" Wansik screamed. "We do not retreat. We are the Zerion Empire. We—" His words were cut off as the Indomitable, badly damaged but still fighting, fired its main gun at the alien command ship. The shot punched through the ship's shields and tore a hole in its side. Captain Xiang-Ho's voice came over the radio. "This is Earth. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. And we don't let bullies win." Admiral Wansik looked at his burning ship, his fleeing fleet, and his rebelling slaves. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zerion Empire had been defeated. The humans had done the impossible. They had won. General Byung-Ho Shin stood on the deck of the Liberation, looking at a world that had been enslaved for 300 years. The planet was covered in gray factories and mining stations. The sky was dark with pollution. The Zerion Empire had turned a beautiful world into a machine for making weapons and ships. But that was about to change. "General, we're getting signals from the surface," reported Communications Officer Park. "The local people are asking if we're really here to help them." Byung-Ho picked up the radio. "This is General Shin of the Earth Liberation Fleet. We're here to set you free. Are you ready to fight for your world?" The answer came back immediately in a voice that shook with emotion. "We've been ready for 300 years." It had been 2 years since the Battle of Earth. News of humanity's victory had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Species that had been enslaved for centuries heard that someone had beaten the Empire. Someone had stood up to the bullies and won. The effect was like lightning hitting a forest fire. Rebellions started on worlds throughout the Empire. Slave workers stopped working. Forced soldiers turned their weapons on their masters. Entire planets declared independence. The Empire tried to stop the rebellions, but they faced a problem they had never dealt with before. For 1,000 years, they had ruled through fear. People obeyed because they thought the Empire was too strong to fight. But humans had proven that was not true. If humans could win, maybe anyone could. Eun-Young-Oh was on the bridge of the diplomatic ship Harmony when they received a message from the Cathari system. The Cathari were a species of tall, thin aliens who had been enslaved for 400 years. They made weapons for the Empire. "Human friends," the message said. "We have taken control of our factories. We want to fight, but we don't know how. Can you teach us?" Eun-Young smiled. She had spent 2 years flying from world to world, meeting with rebel groups and freed species. Every time she told them the same thing. "We're not here to rule you. We're here to help you rule yourselves." "Tell them yes," she said to her communications officer. "Send them the training materials and ask what else they need." The training materials were something special. They were not instructions on how to use human weapons or human tactics. Instead, they taught the basic ideas of human warfare. Be unpredictable, use what you have, never give up, and always protect the people who cannot protect themselves. Different species used these ideas in different ways. The Cathari were good at building things, so they turned their factories into weapon-making centers for the rebellion. The Vorthak were fast and good at hiding, so they became message carriers and spies. The Dulari were strong, so they became the soldiers who fought Empire troops on the ground. Jin Woo-an was in charge of coordinating all these different groups. He sat in a hidden base on a moon at the edge of Empire space, sending messages and supplies to rebel groups across dozens of worlds. The Ketheri need more metal for weapons, his assistant reported. The Vorthak have found an Empire supply ship. We can attack. The Dulari want to know if we can help them free their prison camps. Jinwoo looked at his maps of the galaxy. Red dots showed Empire strongholds. Green dots showed rebel-controlled worlds. Yellow dots showed worlds where fighting was still going on. 6 months ago, the map had been almost all red. Now it was half green, with more worlds joining the rebellion every day. Send the Vorthak to capture that supply ship, he said. Tell them to take the metal to the Ketheri, and ask the Liberation Fleet if they can help the Dulari with those prison camps. The Liberation Fleet was humanity's answer to the Empire's conquest fleets. But instead of conquering worlds, they freed them. General Byung-ho Shin commanded 20 human ships and crews from a dozen different species. They traveled from system to system, helping local rebels fight off Empire forces. Dae-jung Kim was the fleet's chief engineer. He had a special job, teaching other species how to fight like humans. The key, he explained to a group of Cathari rebels, is to use what your enemy doesn't expect. You're good at building things, right? So build weapons that look like something else. Make bombs that look like power generators. Turn your mining equipment into guns. The Cathari listened carefully. They had been slaves for so long that they had almost forgotten how to think for themselves. But humans were teaching them to remember. What if the Empire brings more ships? One of them asked. Dae-jung smiled. Then you do what we did at Earth. You make them fight on your terms, not theirs. You hit them when they're not ready. You use their size against them, and you never, ever give up. Meanwhile, Sujin Bayek was doing the most dangerous job of all. She was a spy, working inside Empire command centers. She looked human enough that she could disguise herself as one of the Empire's slave workers. Her job was to find out what the Empire was planning and warn the rebels. Right now, she was on the Empire capital world, working in a communication center. She wore a gray uniform and kept her head down like a good slave, but she was listening to everything. The rebels have taken the Zephyr system, she heard one officer say. That's the 5th system this month. How is this possible? Another officer replied. They're using primitive weapons and captured ships. We should be able to crush them easily. Humans taught them something, the first officer said. Some kind of new way of fighting. Our tactics don't work against it. Sujin memorized everything she heard. That night, she sent a coded message to Jinwoo's base. Empire is planning to attack the Zephyr system with planet-killer weapons. They're getting desperate. The message reached Jinwoo within hours. He immediately contacted the Liberation Fleet and the local rebels. By the time the Empire's ships arrived at Zephyr, they found the system empty except for some very unpleasant surprises. The rebels had mined the space around their world with explosives. When the Empire ships came too close, the mines exploded. The Empire fleet was damaged before the real fighting even started. Then the rebel ships attacked from behind asteroids and moons, just like humans had taught them. The Empire ships were bigger and stronger, but the rebels were faster and smarter. After 6 hours of fighting, the Empire fleet retreated. For the first time in 1,000 years, they had failed to destroy a rebelling world. Emperor Vextar himself was getting worried. He sat in his palace on the capital world, reading reports of defeat after defeat. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was falling apart. How many systems have we lost? He asked his aide. 112, Your Majesty, and more are rebelling every day. How is this possible? We have the biggest ships, the best weapons, the most soldiers. How can we be losing to slaves and primitives? His aide was nervous. Bringing bad news to the emperor was dangerous. The humans, Your Majesty, they've taught the rebels to fight differently. They don't try to match our strength. They use tactics we've never seen before. Emperor Vextar stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the capital city with its huge buildings and monuments to empire victories. But now some of those buildings were burning. Even here, on the most heavily guarded world in the empire, there were rebels. What do our military advisors suggest? He asked. They say we should negotiate. Offer the rebels some freedom in exchange for stopping the war. Never, Vextar shouted. The Empire does not negotiate. We rule or we destroy. But even as he said it, he knew something had changed. The rebels were not fighting like normal rebels. They were fighting like the humans had at Earth, with everything they had, never giving up, always finding new ways to cause trouble. The Empire had dealt with rebellions before. Usually, they would crush the rebels with overwhelming force, and everyone else would see what happened to those who resisted. Fear would keep the rest in line. But fear was not working anymore. Every time the Empire destroyed one rebel world, 2 more worlds joined the rebellion. The humans had given them something more powerful than weapons. They had given them hope. And hope, Emperor Vextar was learning, was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. On the Harmony, Yun Young-oh received a message that made her smile. It was from the newly freed Cathari system. Human friends, we have something to tell you. Our children are asking us to teach them about Earth. They want to know about the people who taught us to be free. Can you send us some of your history books? We want our children to grow up knowing that freedom is possible. Eun-young wiped a tear from her eye. This was what they were fighting for. Not to rule other species, but to help them rule themselves. Not to build a new empire, but to make sure no empire could ever enslave the galaxy again. The fire of freedom was spreading, and it would not be stopped. Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of the New Earth, the flagship of the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Around him were ships from 50 different species, all united in one purpose, to end the Zirion Empire forever. It had been 5 years since his accidental journey into Empire space had started this war. Now he was leading the final assault on the Empire's capital world. The same man who had stumbled into this conflict would be the one to finish it. Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 more Empire worlds, reported his communications officer. They want to join the alliance. Tell them they're welcome, Hyun-woo said. But remind them, we're not here to conquer. We're here to free everyone, including their own people. The bridge was full of aliens now. His weapons officer was a tall, thin Kethari who had learned to fight from human teachers. His navigation officer was a strong Dulari who had broken out of an Empire prison camp. His science officer was Dr. So-Jin Lee, the same human woman whose broken engine had started everything. The capital world's defenses are impressive, So-Jin reported. Thousands of weapons platforms, hundreds of ships' energy shields around the whole planet. But I think I know how to get through. She had spent 5 years studying Empire technology and mixing it with human ideas. The result was science that neither species could have created alone. The Empire's shields are designed to stop massive attacks, she explained. They expect enemies to hit them with everything at once. But what if we don't? On the planet below, Emperor Vexatar stood in his war room, looking at displays that showed rebel fleets approaching from every direction. His empire, which had ruled for 1,000 years, now controlled less than 50 worlds. Everything else had either joined the rebellion or been destroyed by his own desperate tactics. Your Majesty, his last remaining general said nervously, perhaps it's time to consider terms. The rebels are slaves, Vextar screamed. I am Emperor of the Galaxy. I do not make deals with slaves. But even as he shouted, he knew the truth. The rebels were not slaves anymore. They were free people who had learned to fight for their freedom. And they were winning. Activate the Omega Protocol, he ordered, quietly. The general's face went pale. Your Majesty, the Omega device will destroy everything within 100 light years, including us. If I cannot rule the galaxy, Vextar said coldly, then no one will have it. The Omega device was the Empire's final weapon. It had never been used before because it was too terrible even for them. It would turn stars into bombs, destroying every world in this part of the galaxy. Billions of beings would die, but the Empire would take everyone with them. In space above the capital, the Allied fleet prepared for the final battle. Min Seo Choi was the youngest ship captain in the fleet at only 22 years old. She had grown up hearing stories about the war. Now she was part of ending it. All fighters, this is Captain Choi, she said into her radio. Remember why we're here. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but so every child in the galaxy can grow up free. Her ship, the Young Hope, led a squadron of fighters from a dozen different worlds. They were the spearhead of the assault, tasked with getting through the Empire's defenses and clearing the way for the main fleet. The space around the capital world erupted in fire as thousands of weapons fired at once. But this time, the Allied fleet did not attack like the Empire expected. They did not come straight at the defenses in massive formations. Instead, they split into hundreds of small groups. Each group attacked a different target. The Empire's computers designed to track large fleets could not keep up with so many small threats coming from so many directions. Fighter squadrons slipped between the big weapons. Assault ships hit defense platforms from unexpected angles. Supply ships became missiles crashing into shield generators. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. This was how humans fought, not with perfect formations, but with creativity and stubbornness and the absolute refusal to give up. Dr. Sojin Lee watched her instruments as the planet's shields flickered under the random attacks. "That's it," she said to Hyunwoo. "The shields are trying to protect against everything at once. They're overloading." "All ships," Hyunwoo broadcast, "concentrate fire on Grid Section 7, now." The entire Allied fleet turned their weapons on one small section of the planetary shield. The shields, already stressed by hundreds of small attacks, could not handle the focused assault. A hole opened in the energy barrier. "Go! Go! Go!" Minseo shouted, leading her fighters through the gap. But as they broke through the shields, alarms started sounding throughout the fleet. Sojin looked at her readings with horror. "Admiral, they're charging some kind of massive weapon on the planet's surface. The energy readings are—" "Oh no." "What is it?" Hyunwoo asked. "It's a star killer. They're going to turn the local sun into a bomb. It will destroy everything in the system, including us." Hyunwoo looked at the tactical display. The Allied fleet was spread out around the planet, fighting Empire defenses. Even if they turned and ran right now, they would not be fast enough to escape the explosion. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe an hour before the weapon fires," Sojin said. On the planet's surface, Emperor Vextar watched the countdown timer on his Omega device. In 57 minutes, he would destroy the sun and everything around it. The rebels would die, but so would he and everyone on his capital world. It was worth it. He would rather rule over ashes than let slaves be free. But he had forgotten something important about humans. They did not give up. "Admiral," came Minseo's voice over the radio. "I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." "Tell me," Hyunwoo said. "The weapon is controlled from the palace. If a small team could get inside and shut it down, the defenses around the palace will destroy any ship that gets close," Hyunwoo pointed out. "Not any ship," Minseo said. "Just any ship that looks like a threat." "What if we don't look like a threat?" Hyunwoo understood. It was the same trick they had used against the Empire over and over. Do the unexpected. "Do it," he said. Minseo took her fighter and 5 others down to the planet's surface. But instead of flying in formation like attacking ships, they flew like they were damaged and trying to escape. They sent out distress signals and flew erratically, as if their engines were failing. The palace defenses tracked them but did not fire. They looked like ships trying to flee the battle, not ships attacking the palace. At the last moment, Minseo's squadron revealed their true purpose. They crashed through the palace windows and landed in Emperor Vextar's throne room. The Emperor stared at the human girl who climbed out of the wrecked fighter. She was young, barely an adult, and her ship was on fire, but her eyes were determined. "You're too late," Vextar said. "The weapon will fire in 30 minutes. Everyone will die, including you." "Maybe," Minseo said, raising her weapon. "But everyone will die free." The final battle was not between fleets of ships or armies of soldiers. It was between a young human woman and the last emperor of a dying empire, fighting over the controls of a weapon that could destroy a solar system. Vextar was older and stronger, but Minseo had something he did not. 5 years of training from people who had learned that giving up was not an option. The fight lasted 15 minutes. When it was over, Minseo stood over the defeated emperor, her hand on the controls of the Omega device. How do I shut this down? She asked. Vextar smiled cruelly. You can't. Only my genetic signature can stop it now, and I would rather die than help you. Mincio looked at the countdown timer. 12 minutes left. 12 minutes before the sun exploded and killed everyone in the system. Then she remembered something her grandmother had told her when she was little. Sometimes the only way to win is to change the rules of the game. She could not stop the weapon, but maybe she did not need to. Admiral Kim, she said into her radio, I can't shut down the weapon, but I can change its target. Instead of our sun, I can make it target the star in the Xerion home system, the one with no inhabited planets. There was a pause. Then Hyunwoo's voice came back. Do it. With 2 minutes left on the countdown, Mincio reprogrammed the Omega device. Emperor Vexistar screamed in rage as he realized what she was doing, but it was too late. The weapon fired. Instead of destroying the inhabited system, it destroyed an empty star system far away. The explosion lit up the galaxy, but no one was hurt. Emperor Vextar was taken prisoner. The Xerion Empire officially surrendered. After 1,000 years of ruling through fear, they had been defeated by species who refused to be afraid. But the real victory came later, when representatives from every freed world gathered to decide what would happen next. The Empire is gone, announced Yun Young-oh, who had been chosen to lead the conference. The question is, what comes next? Some species wanted to divide up the Empire's territory among themselves. Others wanted to build a new empire with different rulers. But the humans had a different idea. We don't want to rule anyone, Hyunwoo said to the assembly. We never did. We just wanted everyone to be free to make their own choices. What are you suggesting? Asked a delegate from the Cathari. A federation, said Yun Young. Not an empire where one species rules all the others, but an alliance where every species rules themselves. We help each other when help is needed, but everyone makes their own decisions.